Let's get to President Joe Biden, who honored the country's fallen troops yesterday by visiting the tomb of the unknown soldier at Arlington National Cemetery. In his Memorial Day message, the president spoke about preserving the legacy of those who died to protect democracy and his own personal experience with losing a child.
Tomorrow marks 8 years since we lost our son, Beau. Our losses are not the same. He didn't perish in the battlefield. It was cancer that stole him from us a year after being deployed. As if I can still hear him saying, "Dad, it's my duty, Dad. It's my duty. Duty." That was the code my son lived by, and all those you lost lived by. Today, we once again gather in this sacred place at this solemn hour to honor fallen heroes, those who died so our nation might live.
Meanwhile, President Biden's most likely 2024 opponent, Donald Trump, had a less reflective Memorial Day message. On his social media website, the former president compared himself to the country's fallen heroes, wishing a happy Memorial Day to, quote, those in line of a very different but equally dangerous fire, stopping the threats of terrorists, misfits, and lunatic thugs who are working feverishly from within to overturn and destroy our once great country. It's brutal, Joe. I mean, I don't even know what to say.
Well,
I guess it's a step up from what he said in the past about our fallen heroes.
Well, I mean, what he said in the past. I mean, you look at the Atlantic article back in 2020 where he basically called men and women who gave their all suckers. And it's always been his attitude about it. He has contempt for those who would sacrifice for their country. And Willie, I mean, this is, again, we're not surprised by what Donald Trump says. I will say I'm surprised that there's still such a large number of Americans, at least telling pollsters, that they would still support this man who, again, whether it's Memorial Day, whether it's Mother's Day, whether it's the 4th of July, whatever it is, he tries to be as hateful and disrespectful as possible. And again, I'm not catastrophizing here. I saying earlier, there were Republicans that were grown-ups. Most would never do something like this. And yet the person that runs the party right now is the most hateful, has been the most hateful. And even days like Memorial Day, when we should all stay focused on those men and women who gave their all in battle and across the world so we could be free.
Yeah, it goes out of his way to say the worst thing possible on a day that for a lot of us, and I would argue for most Americans, is a really solemn, heavy day filled with gratitude from people who fought for our freedom in 1776 all the way forward to Iraq and Afghanistan, and people who've lost their lives since coming back from the war. That's what we think about. That's what most Americans think about. But, Caddy, you know, when you look at the comments that Joe's talking about in the Atlantic magazine, the post yesterday shouldn't be surprising. When you have Donald Trump saying to General John Kelly on Memorial Day 2017, as General Kelly was going to visit the grave of his son, Robert, who was killed in Afghanistan, Donald Trump saying to General Kelly, I don't get it. What was in it for them? Looking at all those headstones. Why would they go serve in the military? Why would they sacrifice? He doesn't get it. And he did call, and it was confirmed by many sources after that Atlantic piece, soldiers who died in France, American soldiers, losers and suckers. We know everything he said about John McCain. He's shown us how he feels about people who serve the country and about veterans and everyone else. He can give lip service to it, but we know how he really feels.
Yeah, and interesting now that you've got Fox News as well, confirming those comments by President Trump, too. You know, I remember having an interesting conversation with somebody I know quite well, a general who'd worked in the military, retired, and who'd actually been pretty conservative, pretty keen on President Trump. And it was when those comments came out that he really decided he'd had enough and that he felt disgusted by what he heard and that lack of support for U.S. troops just was was something he couldn't countenance anymore, and it made him change his mind. And you wonder how many other people in senior positions throughout the military felt that. But you also know that the former president, has quite a lot of support amongst military members. We know that on January the 6th, there were a higher proportion than the average of the population of former security and military members up on the Hill that day. So it's mixed, the reaction amongst military personnel to President Trump, and partly I think the fact that there are people who still support him in the military helps to explain the broader swath of his support across the country.